The all patch boosts everything, so you obviously want this. The most important patch you want to go for is the top speed patch. This is good for all events. A gliding event means that you get more speed, which makes you go farther. Your damage is tied to speed, and being faster means you're harder to hit defensively, so it's also good for combat arenas. Boost is a little bit deceptively named because it's also tied to your acceleration and how much speed you get from charge boosts. It also lets you stop quicker when you are boost drifting. I wasn't really sure if this did improve your traction, but testing it out using a default wing star and a wing star in single player with a high boost stat, it does seem to be true. Either way, this is also good for damage and breaking boxes due to speed being tied to damage against boxes, not players. Offense. Obviously you want offense patches for battle-based missions, but it's good on stars that can't destroy boxes easily. On the other hand, on stars with an innately high damage stat, like the Rex Wheelie, this lets you win other events by just destroying the other player's star. In the original game, it increased your damage up to quadruple, which meant that it scaled faster than defensive and HP growths. So if you go for offense, you'll probably beat someone who's going only for defense and HP. HP obviously boosts your health, but there's a bit more nuance to it than that. Health tends to scale faster than defense patches, meaning that you get more defensive power compared to an actual defense patch. In the original game, you'd get around quadruple your health versus defense would increase your damage resistance to about triple. This does make a pretty substantial difference in the long run. Weight. This does a little bit of everything, which can be good or bad. You do go a tiny bit faster, and I do mean tiny. You do damage, because weight is slightly tied to damage. You take less damage, you have less knockback when you get hit, but you also turn worse and you have more inertia when you try to turn. For gliding, this isn't necessarily bad, but you go straighter during your flying arc, which means that you land faster, but you also move a little bit faster. This is not very helpful if you're trying to use a gliding star, so you do want to avoid this. The other issue with it is that the stat boosts that it does give you overall are pretty middling, so it's hard to really notice any weight changes. Defense. Defense does reduce the damage using the star's innate damage resistance stats, and it is multiplicative. This also reduces the knockback you take from attacks. In the original game, generally vehicles would have a flat 20% damage resistance that would scale up to triple with the defense stats. The big issue is that stars' HP stats aren't completely correlated to a star's defense stat, so there aren't many stars that actually benefit from a defense patch over an HP. One of the exceptions would be the default wheelie scooter. Defensively, it doesn't scale as quickly as HP does. At max HP, the same attack would take 20% off of your health, versus if you had max defense, it would instead take 40% off your max health. It's mostly a nice bonus if you have high HP. Turning. This makes you turn better, but this does include air control. If you are doing something like target flight, it is also good for gliding. When you're doing drift boosts, this also lets you change the angle faster, and this does not increase your traction. The boost patch does that. It just lets you change directions better, so some stars really don't need this, but it's pretty mandatory for clunkier stars like the bulk star or some of the chariots. This is also good for races because it's generally faster to take a turn without drifting if you're able to do it. Gliding, it does a lot more than just let you glide longer. Some stars are a little bit slower when they glide, so you might not want this. Otherwise, it's only good for gliding events or getting to areas like the Garden in the Sky and City Trial to boost your other stats. In the GameCube version, and this seems to be the case here, this patch would reduce your weight, and that includes reducing your damage, you would have less traction, you take more knockback, and this seems to be the case in this game. Charge. I have this at the very bottom because it's not really great. Even on stars that wouldn't really want it. All it does is increase your star's charge rate, and that's it. It doesn't do anything besides that. This would be okay on the bulk star or the rocket star, but the bulk star has pretty good fuel efficiency in this game, and the rocket star, it's still kind of okay, but even then, it's only just okay on that. This does scale pretty quickly, but once again, it's to the benefit of an ability you don't use very often, and it's not good for drift boosts because by the time you commit to a drift boost, your meter is maxed out anyways. There's not much reason to take charge over anything else if you have a choice.